So ever since his introduction, Dragon Ball Z, Frieza has been an incredibly popular character among fans. His design, transformations, overwhelming power, and sadistic nature have made him stand above most of the other villains in the franchise. This, however, has had a downside, as it resulted in him being brought back from the dead time and time again throughout the story, particularly in out-of-continuity events such as movies, specials, and Dragon Ball GT. By the time of Dragon Ball Super, most fans had grown tired of him coming back from the dead. So what was Toriyama's bright idea for a movie that would be a follow-up to the awesome Battle of Gods, which introduced a new type of energy and expanded the universe into a multiverse? Well, bring Frieza back from the dead, of course. This resulted in arguably one of the worst movies in the franchise, which would also become one of the worst arcs of Dragon Ball Super, when it was poorly adapted to a weekly anime format, with terrible animation and even greater wasted potential. Frieza was basically a flanderized trope of his prior self, having never trained, despite somehow knowing how to use energy, fight, and transform into various forms, gaining a shiny new transformation, and somehow being able to surpass every other villain in all of Goku and Vegeta's accomplishments in 4 months of off-screen training, a method the Earthlings would borrow come the Tournament of Power. All Frieza cared about was his revenge, and by the end of the movie, he was dead again. It would have been a colossal waste had he not been brought back for the Tournament of Power, and actually written well there, at least for the most part. However, what if I told you that there was a Frieza Soldier who totally outshined Frieza in Resurrection F, essentially making him look second-rate in his own arc? Well, there was, and his name was Tagoma, the most badass Frieza grunt of all, and no Broly, you're not included. Now, Dragon Ball has had a long history of the second antagonists outshining the main protagonist of their own arc. We saw this with Mercenary Tao in Dragon Ball's Red Ribbon Army arc, Deborah in Dragon Ball Z's Buu Saga, and Toppo in Dragon Ball Super's Tournament to Power. Though it isn't exactly hard to outshine a generic walking pile of muscles with next to no development who either sits around or says the same thing most of the arc. No, Harold, I take it back! The same can very much be said of Tagoma, who was pretty wasted in the Resurrection F movie, but got a lot more shine in the Super arc. When we first met Tagoma, he was a member of the remnants of Frieza's forces, who were losing control over the Empire after their master's death. His power wasn't very impressive, especially at this point in the series, and he didn't really seem to think much of Frieza himself, having only seen him once before and being incapable of sensing his power. It was Tagoma, with the help of Sorbet, who gathered the Earth's Dragon Balls and wished back Frieza. And after Frieza immediately mentioned that he wanted to go back for revenge, Tagoma was the only one with enough common sense to say, maybe we should help reform the Empire and get things under control first, rather than once again rushing to his death like an idiot. Which are my words, but he might as well have said that. Naturally, Frieza didn't appreciate someone in this franchise having common sense, and the Resurrection F version of events killed Tagoma by throwing him out into space. But in Super, things took an interesting turn, as Frieza decided to train and made Tagoma his training partner. Together, the two went to a faraway and seemingly hostile world. Once there, Frieza would commence a brutal beatdown of Tagoma, all day, every day, for 4 months, bringing him to the brink of death and having him heal time and time again. Now, many people like to talk about the massive power boost that Frieza got here, and for good reason, but Tagoma's is far from a laughing matter, and I should know, I'm Laughingstock Media, as he went from being weaker than a member of the Ginyu Force to one-shotting Piccolo and taking a low blow from Gotenks without any significant damage. Gohan even specifically says that Tagoma's power was comparable to him at his best, which means that Tagoma went from a power level in the thousands to stronger than forms of Buu through his training, getting literally millions of times stronger from near-death boosts. Are we sure that this guy isn't part Saiyan? Not only that, but during this period of time, Tagoma's personality also changed, as he realized that being ruthless and powerful was the way to get him exactly what he wanted. So not only did this guy get a massive power-up, but he got even more character development than Frieza did during his own arc. Tagoma was a character I think would have been really interesting to see further explored, perhaps coming back in the future as an antagonist, or even joining the good guys, such as during the Tournament of Power. Unfortunately, this is where his story ended. as rather than building upon a new and interesting original character, Dragon Ball Super instead decided to go the lazy, nostalgic route, by having Captain Ginyu take over his body and subsequently get blown away by base Vegeta with ease, leaving Tagoma trapped inside the Namekian frog's body and all but forgotten to time, but certainly not to me. So that was how a Frieza Soldier outshined him in his own arc. Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. If you like this video, then leave a like and share it around on social media. It really helps the channel. And make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.